something that isn't really talked about often, and there's often a lot of homophobia or just negative feelings towards women, and there's just a lot of gender discrimination within the Filipino community sometimes, and that's something that I don't want to shy away from, because I want to be able to empower people to move past it.
Okay. Okay. So something that really caught my attention, especially about Philippine politics, in my research was like how influential social media is for the younger generation, especially with the most recent election. Like I was looking through, and I was like, oh, okay, there's history that isn't known, and it's, oh, there goes my train of thought. I'm sorry.
I can ask a question.
Yeah.
Just any particular issue within the Philippines or the Filipino American community that you feel so passionate about?
Okay, no, yeah. It's definitely the discourse between the knowledge of the older generation with the current political officials, between what happened in the past and versus like how it's been shifted to for current voters now, and how influential the young voters' voices are, and how they're, oh god, I'm getting political here, but they're kind of being like brainwashed, low-key, they're being brainwashed through social media to believe that the past never happened and that someone's truly bringing change. And I think it's something so interesting, especially in relation to here. Like social media is seen now too as like more truthful than like newscasts and, oh god, I forgot what news things are called. That's, yeah. But yeah, that. I'm sorry guys.
For me, the issue that I'm very passionate about is the current president of the Philippines. Like before I left, the presidential elections in the Philippines was one of the most active I've been in terms of my activism back at home, and that was like the one thing how do I say this? It was like the last thing I did before I left home. And I guess it still resonates with me because all the things that's happening under the current administration is something that I'm so against, like the mandatory or the talks of mandatory ROTC and the jeepney phase out and all that. Like I'm very passionate about that, and I wish that I could be more updated with it. So I usually ask my friends hey, what's going on with this? Because I have friends in NDMOs, and I'm always like, oh, what are you guys doing? Let me know how I can help from over here, all the way to the other side of the ocean. I want to help, and that's how passionate I am, because it's hard seeing as Eliza said, a lot of people are being brainwashed. I saw this TikTok about saying how the golden era of Marcos regime before, and I'm that's not true. Stop showing just the good sides of history. You should show every single side of history, but whether it be good, bad, or ugly, just so we don't get to repeat the ugly parts anymore. And yeah, that's it.
So learning about the social and political climate of the Philippines and Filipino diaspora may be intimidating for many people, especially people who are newlyweds who are exploring the culture or newer to the space of Kasamahan. So how will you create a safe and brave space for membership to engage in the community and political pillar?
I plan to just be very open with it. Me personally, I don't know much about the diaspora as someone who comes from the Philippines and isn't Filipino American. So I'm not very familiar with it. So I would open up the conversation, being hey, could you tell me something about this? And maybe, and if you want to, I could tell you something about the Philippines or something like that. And that's how I plan to be open about it, and make sure they're comfortable. You're not alone. I don't know what you went through, what your experience is as Filipino American, and you may not know my experience as being Filipino from the Philippines. So that's how I plan to be open with it, create a safe environment and stuff.
Okay. Okay, so I talked about this in my speech. It was pretty much creating like a space where like they're not learning alone, because I will admit I'm not as fully well rounded about Philippine politics, both in Philippines and in America, as like these two. But like I just want to work and try to create a space where they're willing to enter it and try to put the work into like learning, because I feel like a lot of people, especially in Kasamahan, they haven't even entered the space, so how are they going to participate or learn? So I'm just trying to like open up the space, try to pique interest and allow people to like figure out like politics is interesting, it's cool, and if you're learning about it, I'm learning about it with you, and it's something that we're doing together, not just like you're sitting in a classroom and I'm gonna tell you about it real quick. Like it's something we're doing as a community, not just a one-way street.
Yeah, so like they were both saying, I think it's really important to be open and honest and vulnerable about so many of these topics, but specifically to create a more welcoming environment, especially because politics can be so intimidating. And I know that a lot of people, especially first years or people who are new to the space of Kasamahan, don't really have an idea of how politics may work here or politics may work in the Philippines. I would want to work with the Cultural Relations Director to provide a space where we can just learn about like the foundations of politics here in the Philippines, because it's something that a lot of people don't or aren't educated about, and I think it's really important, especially within the cultural space, to have that collaboration and to be able to know that it's messy and that it's okay to feel that these things are controversial, because a lot of them are. And so it's a space that we can all grow in, and it's not just, like Eliza said, someone lecturing or just teaching, but having an actual conversation and engaging with members about that.
Or are we supposed to choose?
Seeing as SF itself has a rich Filipino-American history and also is ripe with a lot of Filipino community organizations, how do you plan to incorporate this history within PAM, but also these organizations in your plans and events throughout the year?
Okay.
I can go first.
I was like,
As we've done in the past, we've worked with Gabadaan Alliance and NC PASA, and of course I would like to continue that work as we've established relationships with them already. And I know that all three of us have talked about that in our platforms, maintaining those connections. And like you said, specifically with Pam, I think even trying to find time to host events with these organizations or promote these outside organization events, because those are also such great opportunities to learn about our culture. And so I think maintaining that connection, but also growing it, because I think those organizations have so much to offer to us, and they allow us to inherit a lot of knowledge from them, which is really valuable.
I'm sorry, can you say the question again?
Seeing as SF itself has such a rich Filipino-American history and also a lot of different Filipino community orgs, how will you incorporate this into PAM and also any other events or plans that you have?
Okay, good. I just had to formulate. No, but okay, so something that I really wanted to add into PAM was like full day outings, especially as a community, because I know a lot of people will see like community service opportunities and they'll be like, oh, debating whether or not they want to go. But if we put like a community-based service or informative outing, and then combine that with like say a Couple Gardens event or a social gathering, it'll not only create community because we are all closer together and for longer periods of time, and can allow for more like reflection on what we did and what we're going to do or what we learned, but it also will like encourage more people to show up, because if you're gonna show up to the social event, might as well show up to the community service or informative event and just stay together throughout. And yeah, that's one of my ideas.
For me, maybe like adding on to what they said from like collaborating with the outside organizations, I thought like, what if we had like, maybe not like a whole like big event, but maybe like promote a small event like, oh, it's like table day. We have all these like outside organizations come to USF and like introduce themselves, just so we can have a dedicated, like really big dedicated time for membership to explore the outside organizations we're affiliated with. Because what I noticed during like Gen meetings is that we do have space to explore these tabling orgs, but most of the time they're short and they're not really that long. Like, let's say we have like 10 minutes, but then there's like 6 tabling orgs. Like, how will you fit those 10 minutes into all the 6 tabling orgs that we have? So I thought like, what if we had like an event just for the tabling orgs, just so membership gets to know them, and hey, they might like learn something new, they might join the tabling org and all that. Yeah.
Okay, so this position involves having to deal with multiple perspectives, and that could be on the member board or even societal scale. And these different perspectives on, let's say, like several issues, they can conflict with each other. So through this position, how will you be able to handle having to speak for the different perspectives within membership, and especially if they go against your own personal views?
I can go first. So I think I would facilitate conversations with people. Like, I don't mind different opinions, different views, because I actually like welcome them, because I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear why you think so. I want to hear your justifications. So I would welcome their like critiques, their whatever, their opinion, whatever they have to say. I would be willing to like hear them out. I would be, okay, this is what I think. How do you think we can like compromise? Not really compromise, but like what conclusion can we come to from these discussions that we're having right now? And yeah.
Okay, so for me, I think the very important thing about creating like a comfortable space where people are willing to participate in is by first showing that you're heard and you're seen, and you're like, and what you say matters, and we care about whether or not, like, what you say. And I don't want to like shoot anyone down for an opinion that they have, and it's important that they share it in the first place to create a space where, even though maybe everyone around them, they may feel like they disagree, they will still feel comfortable enough to express and share their opinions without the fear of getting backlash or suddenly everyone hating them. And I think it's really important to like create that space where people are like, they are comfortable with like saying what they, not like anything they want to say, but what they believe, and not feeling judged for that. Yeah.
I agree with both of them, and I think no matter what space you occupy, on campus, off campus, there are going to be conflicting opinions. And one of the things that I really would want to implement are critical conversations. And whether it's with smaller groups or individuals, I would want to schedule time to talk about issues, political passions, things like that, and to be able to understand where people are coming from. I think it's really important that we not only hear out someone's beliefs, but we reflect on them as well, because I think facilitating critical conversations, it allows for reflection, not just within the space, but outside, and to grow and continuously think back to the conversations that you're having within the space.
Given that there's so much happening in the world all the time with politics, how would you balance what's happening in the Philippines, what's happening here in the SF community, and also what's happening with other client orgs?
Okay. Well, so something for me is, I know we have a committee, so it's something like, I think that the committee is a very good way to introduce interest in politics, especially in both Philippine politics in America and in the Philippines. And I think I really want to encourage the idea of self-research, because researching something yourself can really put you in the center of whatever topic that you are currently focusing on. And self-research also allows for like better communication with your community, especially in like collaboration for like workshops or PAM events. Like I want to work with others to do that, especially and my co-director, of course. But like I want the Kasamahan community to also like pick and choose what they think is important as well, not just like everything that I believe. So I think it's important to have a half and half between Philippine politics and American politics, Philippine politics in America. Sorry, but yeah.
Unfortunately, throughout the school year, we're not going to be able to touch on every single topic, every single issue in the Philippines, in the community here, and I think it's really going to be, or have to be, a compromise between the co-directors in order to decide what we want to focus on. And like Eliza said, with the committee, the people a part of the committee can bring their interest into the space, and we can all work together to try and determine what specific events or issues we would like to focus on. But it's also a matter of, there might be things that we have to immediately draw our attention to, like the jeepney strike, or like the presidency currently in the Philippines, anti-terror laws. There's a lot of things that could happen that would directly need our attention, and so I think just being able to stay on our feet and to be able to be flexible with whatever issues we want to discuss will allow us to work together.
Yeah.
I agree with what both Ella and Eliza said. It's honestly really impossible to talk about all the issues there is. There's just so many, and with the help of like my co-director and like the committee, that's how we can like prioritize and know which ones we should talk about, which ones we should bring to light. Because there's just so many issues, it's hard to like pick and choose, and it's like, I'm only one person. I can't pick this certain issue just because I'm so passionate about it, because there are other people other than me who may not want to talk about it and may want to talk about another issue. So yeah.
So the community and political pillar often centers around like stories and serious issues that are typically heavier in nature. So it's really important that, of course, we amplify these voices and these stories, but also that we take care of ourselves and our own well-being in the process. So how will you approach any like emotional or mental fatigue in this position should it arise?
I can go first. So first of all, I would be very incredibly honest and transparent with my co-director. Like I'll tell them like, I'm sorry, I'm not in like the mental or physical capacity to do this issue right now. I can't do, like for this period of time I won't be able to do it because I'm not in the capacity to do so. Because as a leader, I think it's very brave of someone to tell another person like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Like you have to be incredibly transparent, because if you're not only will you not only will you like disappoint your like co-director, or like your quality of work won't be as good as you may have wanted it to be because you weren't transparent and honest with your capacity. So yeah, just be honest and be transparent with board, with the membership, with your co. Yeah.
I agree with Kim. Communication is really, really important, and if you're struggling, it's not good to bury yourself into work. That's something that like even now I'm still trying to teach myself to do. So not only would I like I would not only communicate, but also like rely on the people around me, on the community that I found like here, and also the committee that I have, because I have to remind myself that even though I'm a leader, not all the work is on me and my like co-director. It's all the pressure. You may believe that it's on you too, but there are people around us that will want to help us and support us, and it's important for like me to remember and reach out in the event that I like break.
I agree with both Kim and Eliza. I know that a lot of these topics can be mentally draining, or they can be really heavy, and I think this position is really unique in a sense that whoever the co-directors are really do have to lean on each other and really do have to be transparent and honest with their communication because of the weight of the topics that we might discuss. And I think that no matter what's going on, like we should, as co-directors, be able to rely on each other, but also rely on our committee and the rest of board and general membership.
So this position handles a lot of education, not only for our members, but also for yourself. And that means that you will be doing a lot of research and looking at different news sources that will show different sides and different perspectives. So how will you ensure that the sources you use will be unbiased and that you yourself will be unbiased during this entire process?
I think one of the biggest things that I had to teach myself when researching political topics was looking at not only articles that are from unbiased sources, but also looking at articles from both extremes, because to remain unbiased or as unbiased as possible, I think you have to be understanding of whatever opinion, whatever side someone is choosing to take, and it really does just come with thorough research and exploring what everyone else has to say.
I agree with Ella. To remain unbiased, I would look at both extremes, like through like unbiased journalism, but also like why people think a certain way. Why would they think that? Like, I would try to understand where they're coming from. I would try to see their perspective. I would be like, oh, this is why they think so and so, and then like I gain a better perspective on that, and like maybe like if someone from membership were to ask me, oh, like why do people have this opinion, then I could be like, oh, it's because of like this, so like this is from what I read from like their perspective. It's not, the perspective I have isn't only the unbiased one, and I'm not just assuming the extremes perspective. I actually like read through whatever they had to say.
Okay, so for me, like, for politics, it's really hard because both sides believe that they're right, and they will always use sources that will prove that they're right, to make that articles or TikToks, videos, informative, anything. And I agree with both of them that looking both at the extremes is very important, and it will give you a well-rounded sight on what is happening. And I think also a varying of sources is important because strictly people from the same like opinion will write articles versus people who make like vlogs or video information, like things like that. So I think it's important also to take our resources like from all media rather than just written or newscasts. Yeah.
Last question.
Some people get turned off by just hearing the word politics. Some people may be turned off here tonight. How would you engage general members that don't want to get involved in this way?
I can go. So for me, it was really hard to remind myself that politics is part of our culture. The politics that happened in the Philippines, it affected the way we can express ourselves in our culture, like who it targeted, whether or not we could dance a dance, or whether or not we could express the voices of our, like what happened in our history. And like the politics, both past, present, and future, it's affecting us. And I know, I'm sorry, politics is a pretty icky topic, and it's like, it's something that you have to remember that it affects people. You may not like the topic, but if you boil it down, it affects the people and whether or not their voices are heard, or whether or not they can be who they want, or whether or not they can love who they want. And or like, I don't know, or just living life, because some people can't even live with like political struggles, financial struggles. It's all rooted in politics, unfortunately. And I want to work to remind people that even though politics can be messy and dirty, it's deep down you care about the people that politics affects, and that you want to make their voices heard and what they're dealing with, bring it to light. Like, like you may not like politics, but deep down you love the people that politics affects, and it's important to work to get their voices heard, get the topics that are like occurring now or in the past that may have affected us. Like, yeah, I don't know how else to say it.
I agree with Eliza. During the presidential elections in the Philippines, this was a very popular phrase, but everything is political, and I truly believe that. And the way for people to become more comfortable or like ease into politics, how I would introduce politics to them is like show them how politics is integrated into our everyday lives, how like the little things in our life is connected all the way back to politics, and like that's just to show them how even if you want to escape it, you really can't, because it's so integrated into our society, into our lives, into our everyday living. Because, yeah, everything is political, so.
I agree with both Kim and Eliza. Politics, it really does take up so much of our lives, and whether or not people choose to pay attention to it, obviously that's going to be very upsetting. And that's a really big reason why I wanted to focus on legacy within my platform and my speech, because our legacy and our heritage contains politics. Like Kim said, you can't really escape it. If you're a woman studying here, if you have the ability to love who you want here, if you have, there are a lot of privileges that make up our everyday lives, and we have to acknowledge that, even again in the smallest of ways, and hopefully acknowledging those smaller privileges and seeing that they matter will allow people to dive deeper into the bigger, messier, and more like just weighted topics that make up politics.
Sorry. So we always say that we stand in unity and solidarity with each other. And also we say like Isang Baksa, when fall we all fall, and rising all rise. How does that translate to other cultural communities? I think it's really important that we stand in unity and solidarity not just with each other or with the people who share the same cultural background as us, but also with other people, especially when a lot of other cultural or marginalized communities do experience a lot of the same issues, or are rooted from a lot of the same injustices. So how can you see yourself participating in and like amplifying the voices of other cultural communities outside of the Filipino community?
Okay, I'll go first. Well, I know as Kappa CDs, we have to go to or not have to, but like we go to and participate in CFCC, which is the Cultural Center, and that is where all of like the culturally centered student orgs meet and discuss, and I really want to like meet the leaders or representatives of those organizations, because I talked to Janelle about this actually. we talked about this, but just to like show that we're not just a strictly like Kasamahan focused, Filipino focused like group. Like we want to branch out and work with others, and I think the first part is to like meet and talk to people that represent those clubs. So just to get to know them on a surface level first, and then also like just be like, oh, if they have an event going on, like we can tell all of Kasamahan, be like, we should just show up, get 1 point, show up, and just to support the other culturally focused organizations in their, like by supporting them, they'll support us, and it'll be like a community web, like not just us going to a meeting, talking to each other and leaving, but like going to a meeting, meeting each other, supporting like our organization supporting each other, especially, and then educating each other on topics that we all have and care about is very important.
I think it's really important to acknowledge that so many communities of color have gone through a lot of the same struggles. Native Americans here, Native Hawaiians, so many people have faced the injustices of colonization, and it's really upsetting to see. And I think it's so important to acknowledge, especially with different cultural and ethnic groups, that we have a lot of similarities and a lot of the same goals that we're working towards. And I think it's really important to acknowledge those through like we have PAM, and there's Black History Month, there's all of these ways to celebrate and uplift other cultures, and I would hope to host events and workshops that center around those cultures as well, and how they are intertwined with ours, and also looking within Filipino culture as well, and seeing how not only we can uplift other cultures, but how our previous beliefs have shaped the way that we may view other cultures, and sort of dismantling any stigmas or any stereotypes that the Filipino community may hold about other communities of color.
I agree with what both Eliza and Ella said. There are so many organizations on campus. We can make use of CFCC during those meetings and ask them how can Kasamahan help in whatever event or awareness post that you want us to share. How can Kasamahan help you? We have such a large platform as one of the biggest organizations on campus. It's we should be able to uplift those voices and stand beside them. And also I was thinking as Ella said, to have an event where we can be we can show membership these different organizations we have on campus, these different communities we have on campus, and show them how we're all interwoven into this big web that is society.